Hello there, welcome to another show. I'm going to talk today about House of Tolerance. Now, this is a French film from 2011, directed by Bertrand Bonello, and it's about 2 hours long, and it's wonderful. I found out about this one from Dion Wynn, who's covered it, and so go watch his video on it as well, because it's a very good video. But of course, after seeing that, I wanted to see the film too. I'd read his review of it on Letterboxd. I think that's when I bought it, but he's done a video too. It's a terrific film. It's wonderful. It's all about prostitutes in the 1890s in France, and it's all about the life of a prostitute and the kind of moral quandary of prostitutes and the moral quandary of living life in a society that has very questionable views of women as just as being sex objects who will basically age out of their interest for these rich people. And it's about how these prostitutes try and survive, the actual mechanics of survival in this society. It's not about, it shows you the kind of the moral complications and the details of how people survive, but it's also showing you like the practicalities of survival in this era, and the practicalities of what do you do if you sell your body to, prostitution to make a living. So it's very complicated because it shows you the dreams of people, of the prostitutes, but also their delusions as they try and survive, and shows you the clients, and some of the clients are really real sickos, and some of them are, a lot of them are just leeches, really. They're rich people. They don't have to really do much to survive. They've got their money. So it's like they don't really need to worry too much about how they're going to survive. They can cheat on their wives, the prostitutes. They can go home and they're fine. They have no worries here. This is just a night out. They can drink some champagne. They can have sex. Then they go home. They have their favourites. So they keep using certain prostitutes who is their favourites, but that kind of level of favouritism can move on. If they think the prostitute's a bit clingy to them, they can move to another one. If they feel a prostitute actually wants something from them, they can move to another one and say, I don't want to deal with that person anymore. And even though it's cruel, the madam has to accept that. That's just part of the job. And the madam's a former prostitute who's become a madam just to survive beyond. When she's aged out of being a prostitute, she becomes a madam to try and keep her family together. And she's got children, so that's what she's trying to deal with. She's had a apartment, and there's lots of rooms in there, and the rent's going up, and there's going to be far less protection to prostitutes who are actually within a house of prostitution, because it's not important to them, to the people in charge. Prostitutes are pretty much, they're going to be thrown away, and there'll be a new model next year. Is the attitude is like buying a new car for some of these guys, or what would be a new car for future generations? This is a horse and buggy type of thing when this is set. But it's that thing of it's like it's not really about the person. It's like you're there to fill a fantasy for these rich, spoiled industrialists. That's all you're there for. And you don't really have human feelings to them. But you have to impart a suggestion of human feelings to them. And then they can throw it away. It's not just the prostitution of the body, it's the prostitution of the soul as well. And these guys don't care, really. They act as if they care, but they don't care. They have no real concerns about the well-being of these women once they've aged out. It doesn't matter. It's a nice memory for them. They paid for it, and that's the thing. Is it's what happens when you pay someone for affection. Is you feel people where money is currency, they feel that's them. They've done their bit. There's nothing beyond that. They feel they've done their contribution to that person's survival at the time. That's it. That's just transaction. That's all it is. But they can be sentimental and act as if they're actually nice people for doing it, or they're helping these women out during this terrible time and they're having sex with them. And they know what it's all about. They know that they're exploiting the situation. And it's just like that's the way it is. These women live in a time where they've the suffragette movement is still kind of early on, but women can work in factories, can work as seamstresses, they can work as teachers or something, but there's not that many avenues open to them. Most of the main industries that make money are dominated by men. Men control that. So there's no way out. And if you're like uneducated but you're very nice looking, prostitution's is used a good avenue for you. You know. And if you get into a house of prostitution, you'll be protected. You might get some good suitors, so you don't have to go out and go on the street for that. So there's two main prostitutes you follow, even though there's a bunch of prostitutes you follow. But there's the two central ones. One's Pauline, who's a new prostitute. She's just come with letters and things and asking to become a prostitute in this house, and she's accepted, and you're watching her learn how to do it. But also at the same time, you've seen this woman who was a prostitute, who was into one of the clients who was a bit sadistic, and he ended up cutting her face up. So she's got like a Joker smile. So now she's damaged goods and she's a maid. And it just shows you how throwaway the men see her. It tells you straight away how the men actually see these women. It's not subtle, but it tells you exactly what the actual transaction is. Not beyond, not the sentimentality of what they say. This is what they actually mean. It's like, you are a used object. And the only people who actually care about this cut up woman is our fellow prostitutes who give her a job as a maid. The madam gives her a job as a maid. She helps out. She covers her face. But it's also a reminder of what can happen in this life, how difficult it is. And it's about the difficulties of the life and how it's not a good life for anybody. Because you are causing yourself psychological damage by doing this. You are causing yourself long-term damage. I mean, they're drinking a lot with the clients. I mean, that's not going to be good to avoid alcoholism later on. There's emotional manipulation going on all the time. People try to have to revive for affections of these men who change their minds on a whim. And it's just it's about the damage, but it's done in such a wonderful way where it's not hammering it home. It's like, it's showing you the surface area of this existence. Is everything's good, everything's fine, and it shows you that, and it lets you get into that, but it's also showing you the kind of psychological damage quietly. You have to pick up on it. As it goes on, you pick up more and more of the damage being done, and the damage being done to the people trying to survive in this industry. Because it is an industry, ultimately. And it's showing you how that these men might come to this house, but they don't care. And they're not going to protect these women from new laws and rent going up and things like that would actually push them out in the streets. They're not going to care about that. That's not what they're about. And it's the fact that most of these women are going to be doomed, and they're having to deal with like sexually transmitted diseases. It doesn't matter to the clients as long as they don't get it. And it's just this subtle thing with this great atmosphere of, this is what we're selling to you, this easy relationship away from your wives, but it's also, there's a darkness below the surface that's always hinted at, but it's showing the practical damage rather than, apart from the bit where the woman gets face slashed up, there's no other real violence here. It's just the suggestion of darkness going under the surface. And the women have to try and be fun to their clients. They have to try and keep the clients' feelings after a fun time. And it's just also the exhaustion of having to do this and have to be practical and then go in, have a smell, be fun, do this thing with these old men who are, and the other women are like young enough to be their daughters or granddaughters. And then go wash themselves, make sure they don't have any STDs, then go back out and do it again, and it's like this continual repetition of abuse for cash, you know, because there's no avenues open. And even today, there's, for lots of people who are women who are uneducated, there's not many avenues open beyond this. It's like, it's almost like, you've got looks, just do it. And it's like, it's a really sinful, horrible situation. And I use sinful not in a kind of judgmental thing. It's like the thing that's going to go in people's heads afterwards. It's the thing that's going to taint them. you get a sense of these women getting tainted by their experience here. It's making them the psychological future weighed down. It is causing damage, even though they're trying to avoid thinking about it because they're young and they're trying to say, oh, we can survive this, we'll get money and we'll go on. But this film shows you you don't get that much money, and a lot of money goes back to trying to survive and pay the rent and all the rest of it. So getting out, everyone wants to get out, but few people actually can afford to get out because you owe the madam so much money because you have for the rent, you have to give a percentage for the rent. So you have to have so many clients to get out of the debt to the madam. So the madam is, even though she try to help in some way, she's also an exploiter. But that's the best there is. At the time, it shows you this level of exploitation going on, where everyone's involved, and everyone's exploiting the young flesh of these new young women who don't know any better, or eventually when they do know better, it's too late for them. So it's just a machinery, just the same way it was machinery for all the gullible young men who want to show how great they are. This is almost like the same version for women. It's like how beautiful you are. By the time you realise you've just been completely exploited and ruined, it's too late. You're probably diseased, you're probably ill, and your reputation's gone, and it's like, well, that's a shame. These guys will just move on to the next model. It becomes this thing about how age experiences preys on youth. The people who actually have the money and actually can exploit the mechanisms are the people who are getting the fantasy world, which you see the surface of this film, the kind of romantic fantasy world. And the women involved who are providing the fantasy are the ones getting damaged. They're the ones who are actually having to deal with the ramifications. And the film shows that, but doesn't show it in a heavy-handed way. It's just showing you it slowly, showing you how they interact with each other slowly, showing you their dealings with clients, their few days out, their camaraderie with each other as they try and support each other through this situation. And how practical they are about it is like, no one's screaming about it. It's just that you can see them being practical and strong, but you can also see the damage quietly getting done to them. And that's what's really good about the film. It's just like it allows the surface fantasy to be there. It's what they're selling, but it also shows you the real kind of rot below the surface. So what we have ultimately is this. It's a story of prostitution shown in a kind of more an era where there were some rules and some protection, but it's still basically the same scummy practice as it's always been. And it's like that thing of just selling sex there's always kind of a kind of creepy element to it. But this is what happened. This was the kind of house of sin, basically, before, these houses are closed down, the rent went way too high, and prostitutes had to go in the street, basically, and get picked up and go into hotels and things like that, where it would change, and there was they would basically get pimps who were much more brutal to them, take much more of their money, and it would just be a case of, this was before the practice got even worse for women who were trapped in this situation. So it's about prostitution, but it's also showing you the kind of the view of it from the clients, as well as the darker elements of the women trying to survive in it. And there is some sort of fantastical elements in the film to show the kind of weird psychology going on through some of the characters. But it's not pushed too far. It just shows you them wearing masks and doing all this play with the clients to try and get them interested and try and keep them interested. And again, it's the kind of playfulness of it, but also the kind of exploitation, because ultimately they're still exploiting themselves. So that's a wonderful film. This is a really wonderful film. It does not show the prostitutes as weak. It shows you them as trying to survive a bad situation. I originally see them, they seem a lot more in control than they actually are. They have a facade of being in control to try and show to the clients, so the clients don't think they're weaklings or anything. Because the clients wouldn't be interested in that. That's not part of the fantasy world. So they have to show as if they're in control and then they're dominated by the clients. And it's that kind of weird psychological kink that's there that the film also shows by having the fantastical and having some weird moments that are not quite realistic, just to show the fantasy world of the clients. So this is a wonderful film, and it's a wonderful look at kind of sexual exploitation where the women are getting paid, but it's still exploitation. And it shows you the kind of a subsection of the basic class war that's always been ongoing, where the poor have to survive in any way they can, and the rich will keep their money and find ways to exploit the poor. That's always happened, always will happen. It's just the way human beings are, because we are damaged in lots of ways. And this film shows you a subsection of our damage when it comes to sexuality and prostitution and paying for sex, and the distances a lot of men have to that, and how they try and separate themselves from that. They want the sex, but they don't want the emotional attachment. They're very got wives and things. So it shows you a different way that women can be damaged by sexuality, predatory sexuality of males. And it's a wonderful film. I think it's a great film. It's in DVD. I really wish it was in Blu-ray, because it looks gorgeous in DVD, but it would look even more amazing in Blu-ray. This is a wonderful film. Highly recommend it. Go see it. Okay, that's me for now. I'll be back very soon.